Paul Turner. It's my understanding that you joined the Monarchs in 2008. Is that correct?
Well, I've read the book, and I think that's what the book says. But actually, I was a substitute drummer for the Monarchs before I started picking up a guitar for them. And that's a story I think we'll get to, but I probably did that about 9 months. Whoever was drumming, either Paul or Jeff or somebody, wasn't able to come to some shows, and so I picked up some smaller shows as a drummer.
So you play lots of other instruments besides the guitar and drums?
Yeah, I play quite a few instruments because when you're doing your own stuff, it's cheaper that way. But I play, and I also teach drums and guitars and bass guitar and hand percussion and banjo, and I've given a couple harmonica lessons. So if you want to play something, just let me know and give me a couple weeks to work on it, and we'll go from there. Yeah.
How many students do you have?
For about 10 years, I've had 50-some students. They haven't all been the same students, but I keep a load of about 50, 55 students. Yeah.
So what were some of the other groups in your history in music before the Monarchs came along? And then how did that lead into the Monarchs?
I've been playing music all my life because it's fun and I enjoy it. Right out of high school, I played for the band in Sacramento at the time called Woodwork. And we did openings for people like Pat Metheny and Ozark Mountain Daredevils and Brewer and Shipley and some of the bands that came to town. And we traveled a little bit. That was my first initiation into full-time playing music. And that was fun, but got to be where I really wasn't into the lifestyle of that particular band at the time. Joined a company that traveled around the country doing much what the Wolf Brothers do. We played schools, we played 5 shows a day during the school year, and a lot of good times, a lot of good experiences. Met my wife, had to settle down, so I saw the end of the road at that point in time because I met Leslie, and just always have continued to play music, whether it's leading in a church or playing in a band, doing openings for bigger concerts and that type of thing. Some of the bands that I've played in around town, which indirectly led me to the Monarchs, were Lunar Beach House and the Lost Boys, and but ultimately with the Monarchs, and I'm very happy being a Monarch.
You grew up in Sacramento, California, correct?
Yeah, Carmichael is northeast of Sacramento, but that was Sacramento, and that was home till I was 18 and hit the road with the band I just talked about. Yeah.
Okay.
And I do think it shaped my music interest, I guess you might say. And for a while I missed that, because when I hear something or somebody refer to, like a friend of mine back in California, he would talk about things that I really haven't heard out here at all on an oldies channel or anything. So I know that the background in music was a little bit different out there. But we did have KYA, so we did have Look Homeward Angel in the 60s.
So you're involved in music from other angles. You're a songwriter. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that. You've written some for the Monarchs and other people.
Yeah, I enjoy writing songs. It's therapy for me. It's a release. It's a way to just be creative, and I enjoy it very much. Crafting a song, and I've done it for many instances, personal as well as commercial. I enjoy it, and certain people know about it, and they ask me for a song once in a while. Yeah, for the Monarchs, it was an honor. We did an album called Great American Rock and Roll Dream. Had to think about that. Billy Reed wrote the book, and either he or Leon said, this needs a song. So Leon had some input, but we wrote the song called Great American Rock and Roll Dream. I played it a couple times live, but we know that it's nice that people know what they're listening to from the radio and otherwise. So we haven't played mine all too much, but there's a song called Best Time in Town Tonight, and that was written for the Monarchs. And the last time we did that live, it was opening for Al Jardine of the Beach Boys at the State Fair, and got a good response. But you know, we play what people know and have heard on the top 10 all their life.
You also had some cuts on the Monarchs Christmas CD?
Mm-hmm. Some that I had previously recorded on our previous album. of mine that we reworked a little bit and added some sax in and that type of thing. 2 or 3, I think, that were Christmas songs that we put on our Christmas album, which I hope everybody else is happy with it. I know the band is happy with that Christmas album.
I think you and I agree on something, that the music is very powerful in a lot of different ways. Tell me your views on this.
Oh, wow. Well, I've seen it work inside a church. I've seen it work inside a hospital. I see it at every Monarchs concert where people become people they aren't without the music. In other words, the music will bring up something in them that was there, but it was dormant, but they enjoy it. They love to sing, they love to dance. Thank goodness they love to sing, because sometimes the fans are singing the words that we forget, and we look at the fans and we sing the words because they're singing with us. But in so many ways, music inspires us and instills in us and brings out in us some emotions that are something only music can do. And that's always been, I've always understood that on a personal level, and I've seen that as I've performed many, many times, which is part of the inspiration to perform well, because if it really does come from the heart, that will translate to what the person or people that are listening to you, how they will respond. And it's so much more fun to play for an engaged audience that has a good time than play for some that are just sitting quietly listening, which is okay too. But it's nice to get them involved.
You have a solo CD that you put out a while back, Love Outside the Lines. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure, thanks. Love Outside the Lines is a CD we did, like you say, some time ago. And it's songs that I've written and performed in churches and outside of churches. But I looked at the community. I looked at so many people who are gifted and do other than what they normally do. In other words, on this Love Outside the Lines album, we had a couple Crashers, we had a couple Monarchs, we had Tanita Gaines, we had a Wolf brother. We had many people come together for this. They played bass, they sang, they played keyboards, they played guitar, they did what they do, and it became, I think, a joy and kind of incredible, just because we all worked together and it sounded good because of that. I think I mentioned earlier that I was a substitute drummer. I remember after a particular gig that I drummed on, and Craig came to me and said, "You know, our guitarist is leaving." And I said, "No, I didn't know that." He said, "Yeah, he's leaving. So isn't that you that played guitar on that song I sang on Love Outside the Lines?" And I said, "Yeah, that was my guitar." He said, "You should audition." And I said, "I don't know. There's lots of guitarists in Louisville. I don't know." He said, "No, we like you and you should audition." So I remember the audition. I went to the place that we practiced, and I met John, who was musical director at the time, and Leon, and they looked at me, and I brought my guitar in. They had a little amp there and John's keyboard, and they said, "Well, you play drums. What do you want to play?" And I said, "Well, I play guitar, and I don't know. What do you guys want to play?" And so we called up Mustang Sally, and John said, "Is C okay?" And I said, "Yeah, C is fine." And we started in on Mustang Sally for about 30 seconds, and then they stopped, and Leon said, "Well, can you play some lead guitar?" And I said, "Yeah." We started the song again, and about 40 seconds later, Leon said, "Okay, so now you're going to be playing guitar instead of drums," and that's how that happened. So that was kind of fun.
So what is it like being a Monarch?
It's an honor to be a Monarch. You know, I was working in a music store, and the owner had a window right behind where I directed the store. I managed the front of the store, but it was really a repair store for horns, for saxes and trumpets and that type of thing. And he always kept an eye on everything that was going on. So one day I was at the register, and he pointed over to where the sax reeds were, and he said, "That's Leon Middleton of the Monarchs." Now, being from Sacramento, California, it didn't really register who the Monarchs were. I didn't know the Monarchs, really. But anyway, I said, "Who are the Monarchs?" to Leon, and he said, "Oh, they're a very respected band in town." And so I did something with Leon that I had done before, and it worked. So I tried it again. I walked over to Leon and I introduced myself and I said, "Hi, Leon, my name is Paul Turner. I hear you with the Monarchs, and I just want you to know that if your drummer ever drops dead, I would like to have a chance. You call me." And so we talked a little bit. I knew the drummer, by the way, so it wasn't cold, but I knew the drummer. And about 2 months later, he called me for some drumming opportunities, and that's how it started. And that's how I started learning about the Monarchs.
How has music affected your life?
Well, it would be an easier question if you had said, what besides music has affected your life? Because I don't think anything other than music has affected my life near as much. My dad left home when I was young. So, and by the way, I'm an only child. So being spoiled rotten, no, that's not true. I grew up with just my mom and I had a phonograph that worked, and eventually I had some drums, and eventually I had a guitar that we bought with green chip stamps. That's how good a guitar that was. And I always turned to my music. I would come home from school or sports, and I would put the needle on the phonograph, and I would pick up drumsticks or a guitar or something and play along. And at any low point in my life, I would turn to music. Music, I just had an innate feeling that music would help fix it. It would get the bad out and help bring the good in. I was careful of what I played and listened to, and I still am. But there is so much good music, and there always has been in my lifetime, that I could pull from something and it would bring me out of whatever I was out of, or take me further, if it was good, into what I was in. And I guess people always most of my life, people always said, "Would you come play this? Would you do this, be part of this musical thing?" And that was always a very positive thing to me. And it's always been an honor and a privilege to be part of those things, because when you're on stage as a Monarch or otherwise, you're doing that for someone else. You're not necessarily doing that for yourself, but you're doing that to someone else. Maybe someone else is going through a rough point and you want to help bring that out. Maybe they're listening to your CD or whatever it is. Music is a vehicle, a tremendous vehicle, for not only those who play it, but for those who listen as well. Right now I'm doing a project on working through the grief of a loss of a loved one through music. And it's an honor to do so, but there was a time in my life when I lost someone very important, and it was music that helped bring me out of that. So I know that it works, and I know that if people gave that a chance, they would find that it works. I also want to mention the musical community, because as I'm working on this project, a lot of the people that I've met through managing music stores or playing in other bands or just being around music, Louisville has a wonderful, or I should say Kentuckiana, has a wonderful music community, and they support one another, and they have fun with one another, and they help out by playing, with each other when they need to. I'm from California, and I don't remember this happening. In fact, I know it doesn't happen to this extent, where you have the Monarchs and the Crashers and the Wolf Brothers and others who've been around, Paul and so many others who've been around so long, that we just wrap our arms around each other and enjoy being around each other and helping out one another. I've learned to enjoy Tanita Gaines and her voice and her heart, and she's a part of this project, and so are some others who are going to help music bring someone through the low points in their life of losing someone. It's just an honor to be in that. I guess I could have been an accountant or a banker or a grocer and have good friends that played some music, but it ain't quite the same.
Do you have a favorite job that you've worked with the Monarchs?
We've had a lot of experiences since I've been with the band that are notable because of certain situations. Every state fair is a blast. The hype to the state fair, the playing of the state fair. I remember the one time we played the state fair since I was in the band last, was again with the Beach Boy thing, and Gary, what's his name? What is his name?
Puckett.
Gary Puckett. Man, he had a lot of hits back in the day. I hear he had the loudest voice on as a recorder. Anyway, so we get off the stage after we play our set, and I turn around to walk off the stage, and I almost bump right into him, Gary, And so I'm trying to go down these stairs that are quite tall, and he sticks out his hand and he says, "I'm Gary." And I said, "Oh, great, I'm Paul. See ya." And he went on stage and I went off stage, and about halfway down the stairs I went, "I think I just met Gary Puckett." I'm not sure, but I think I did. I did. That was a fun moment. Certain theaters come to mind. There's the stage there, but on the other hand, thank you for being a fan that you are. So many times the fans make the moment. They really do. Doesn't matter what the stage looks like, doesn't matter what we did, but the audience loved it, each fan, one at a time. And many times they'll say something or do something one at a time or en masse to let us know that it was a special moment. I remember one time we were in the Mitchell Opry House, and Jeff, our drummer, Jeff, I'll just say he doesn't like to play Wipeout. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, Wipeout was a thing back in the day that if you could drum it, you were a drummer, and if you couldn't, you weren't a drummer. Well, of course he can drum it very, very well, but he doesn't like to, so he says. So anyway, we were playing Mitchell Opry House, and it turned out that we were doing that for some sort of charity. Everybody else probably knows. I don't remember what, there was a bucket there. And when he said he would play Wipeout, or Leon said he would, or probably Craig actually, said that he would play Wipeout if we had an offering of sorts. We had people coming from the audience, from the balcony. We earned $57 for something because Jeff agreed to play Wipeout on the spot. It was hilarious. It was just, and again, the fans made that moment. But so many things like that, whether on the dance floor or out in the stage at an auditorium, the fans, you make the moment, and we thank you.
Do you have a memory of the worst job you played with the Monarchs?
Well, I try to suppress those as much as I can. I don't know that I should share that, but yes, I do. Let me just say, I'm not supposed to answer yes, but I'm just going to say yes. And I think that everybody would appreciate that short answer.
And you can't share it without naming names?
Oh, well, it had nothing to do with us. It probably had to do with the situation, because when we come on stage, we're professional and things affect us right up to the stage. But when you're on the stage, it's showtime. And so what happened off stage doesn't get carried on, and I respect the guys for that, because I've worked in bands. The fights went on stage, and that's not good for anybody. So we enjoy each other on stage. Derby Dinner is a fun show always, because we let our hair down. Our fans are there. They've seen us many times before, usually. And we kid with each other, and it's fun. And we go into every Derby Dinner show knowing the songs we're going to play, but we have no idea what's going to happen in between. And it's always the in-between that really makes the moment at the Derby Dinner Playhouse and other places, but that's a good one.
Ooh.